Good morning. Anyway, back to the talk about a king separating himself from the land and the people. And man, it's just so justice happens. And when justice happens, everyone's happy. You can actually die and go to the ground and come back as long as you're an innocent person. It means you lived your life innocently, you lived by all good things, you didn't kill, murder, or anyone. The interesting part of what's going on inside the United States is pretty simple. I mean, the United States was told to cease and desist all activities of trying to run like a monarch or a government back in 1984 to make way for the fact of a monarch coming in, mainly myself, king and heir, to set a proper form of government on this side of north of the ocean, so that people could live a life and be under a European rule instead of any other type of rule, say like in the Arab countries. Every now and then you get an uprising with them, so to establish not a foundation but some type of security inside North America and South America. Now, a lot of your history or your past you see in books is made up. It's speculation. It is flat out not researched. Ask how many of these people that ever wrote a book on the United States and its past and its history ever pulled it from a British document before a certain event. And what I mean by a certain event is when you get your city names mixed up, like Chernobyl, Texas and Chernobyl, Czechoslovakia, or you screw up a translation in Czechoslovakia because the way it is written is the way it is said. And if you ever notice inside Czechoslovakia, it kind of has some weird characters to how would you say this in Czechoslovakian. This is actually considered a protection for the language itself. Like Russia, you'll see like a U, and then you'll see an upside down, a regular U, which looks like a U. This is to protect the language, to protect the past and the history. There is an actual language there. You'll probably find it hard to get anything the first class nature. And when I say first class nature, I had 2 to 3 other languages built on top of every European country's language. That means every kid over there in Europe is probably banging their heads off the desk, because now you not only have to learn the second form of British English, but now you got to learn the third form of British English, which is, it's different in similarities. The United States gets the third edition to their language. You do not get a second. If you get your hands on a second, you're lucky, but you sure hell won't get your hands on a first. They're locked up. The main reason for this is not to get away from people learning stuff. There was problems with certain languages. Where the monarchs didn't feel the people needed to learn them and whatnot because it caused problems. So therefore we changed the language. Now let's get back to where this country that calls itself the United States, formerly the USSR, which would be the United Soviet Socialist Republic, or what was it? Anyway, because if you ever go back to World War, and then there's World War One, then there's World War Two. So therefore, there's 3 world wars. You'll see a lot of different stuff. Where it goes from the USSR to the United States, where they say people over here broke away from Russia and Europe, because Europe at that point in time Russia and Europe were the same as far as being together on the fact of a coalition war instead of a United Nations type of setup. Everyone likes to talk about freedom. Well, there's freedom in the living world, I can tell you that. And there's freedom also sometimes in the grave, not the grave, but being buried. So in that freedom, when you die, you aren't technically dead at that point. They throw your ass in the coffin. As long as there's blood in your veins and not embalming fluid, you will come back. Since you insert embalming fluid, you will not come back. If you do come back, in the sense that maybe there was, United States did a experiment out in Kansas City, Missouri area where their underground laboratory is, and they put half blood, half embalming fluid, and said the guy came back. He was half tan, half white. And I say white, his skin totally up in the upper half of his waist to his head had lost the color of or the ability to tan by the sun, and whatnot. So this guy came back, and the biggest thing of it was said he had an excruciating headache. Imagine embalming fluid's pretty thick. It's also outlawed. Embalming fluid, someone is outlawed. Dying here in the United States and Canada is outlawed. You are not allowed to die here. A lot of silence on that one with all you. But anyway, to get things back into perspective, everyone before 1980, let's say 1977, because I'm more comfortable with my birthday, but say 1977. Anyone before then, actually I got to go to 1989 because of Jessica, but you all originated in Europe, most of you. If you didn't originate in Europe, you originated in the Arab country. If you didn't originate in the Arab country, then you originated somewhere in China, Japan, everything. Now, how is the United States under the United Kingdom? The water outweighs the mass of the land. There's more water than there is land, so therefore you're on an island. So get that straight. Okay, talking about the catastrophes in British law as well as European law. I'll just refer to it as European law, it's easier. You do not name Williamsport, Pennsylvania to Williamsport, Texas to Williamsport, Virginia. If Williamsport, Virginia, if I launch an incendiary missile on Williamsport, Virginia, it may blow back to Williamsport, Texas and Pennsylvania. You do not do this. You do not name Williamsport in a particular city, then try to do 50 states of Williamsports. Because more than likely, most of them are going to blow up. And how this works is sometimes there's certain things, artifacts, live artifacts that were stuck here on farmland that were dangerous. I mean, flat out, they were dangerous. Now, the United States and the Unions, all the Area 51s, 72s, 82s, 92s, 99s, and 54s, 22s, 33s, 47 and 42, no, 42 was shut down. All these areas had live artifacts. And when we talk about live artifacts is when someone takes and makes something out of their own craftsmanship, say a knife, and they're dumb enough to add blood to the mix. So you may take a little bit of blood and put it in a knife when it's heated up. Then you may take and even spit on it. There's another form. Now there's two forms in that knife. You may even go to the extent of what some of these so-called religious groups do. They stick a tube down their throat and suck out their stomach fluid and stick it in that knife. Now you're probably wondering, how does this knife become a live artifact? Anything that isn't diminished by that of fire, and they normally do this towards a cooling process, will retain certain things of a person. It's unless that person defines what it is, you're never going to know it. You're going to pick up that knife and be like, oh, I'm cutting my tomatoes, buy it down at the Goodwill store, and you're like, all of a sudden, you get that weird feeling in your head, you're going to hurt yourself, boom, slice the end of your finger off. Let's just say the person's dead in the grave, but yet still alive because he killed someone. Now you know why I cut the end of your finger off. Not to say they have rule over you, or they're a dictator, or they're a king or an heir, but it does happen. Not everyone is a happy-go-friendly person. A lot of people do have a little bit of bad in them. I don't like to say evil, but they do have bad. So anyway, how is the Union and the U.S. government? They're trying to round up all these artifacts of past kings or dictators or leaders, because now they went from kings to dictators and leaders because they demoted them and took their one thing that all these have in common. The BIBLE kind of was used with the mafia to give you a little bit of past knowledge of what it was used for. And it was often used to be able to talk between the KGB, the Kremlin, and kind of become, I wouldn't say a snitch, but to be able to settle down certain indifferences, such as, corruption in business in North America, in the United States. So the Union wants to turn around and try to get some type of control, a foundation and work and whatnot. Okay, this is fine, Dan. We all need work. We all need something to do during the day to create some type of fun. But the first part of a government is, when you're a king and an heir, you must provide food, shelter. You must provide clothing to a certain point. Once jobs and work is established, you got some type of infrastructure, or I won't say infrastructure. You have a setup and guideline of how to build a viable country. You must follow that. That means you're going to sit down, you're going to write it down, and then you're going to sign your name. Now that's my job, to get off my job. Now, once all this happens and you provide all this, everything else, cell phones to some of your clothing, some of your food, even to some of your housing, can be put back on the person. So if you're making $7.50 an hour, I'm more than likely going to say just buy your accessory stuff, your condiments for your food, your iPhones, your Androids and stuff like that, your shoes, your sneakers, your diapers for your kids. But if you go that route, I'll probably bump your what you get a month. But at the same time, you got to realize you just can't say, I'm a union, guess what? All you union people are going to make out, and all you non-union people, go fuck yourself. Okay, you can't do that. That's illegal by law. Now let's get back down to brass tacks in history. We all know one thing. We all came from Europe. We came from the Arab country. Came from Africa for some of you. Some of you even came from another planet, Neptune, Saturn. We're two open planets and whatnot. There's a planet far out in the Meridian solar system, which some of you think the Meridian Islands. I kind of threw the U.S. government off because I didn't want them going out there. Try to build a spaceship and go. When you talk about mileage, it's out there, so you're not talking about a 30-day trip. You're not talking about a 6-month trip. You're talking about an 18-year trip. This country used to go back and forth between Neptune and Saturn. Let's see, we got Mars. Mars has a colony. Neptune, Saturn, they're all viable and livable. So when they say it's not viable and livable, they're lying their ass off. Each one has a little bit of an indifference. That Saturn's a little bit easier on gravity, so is Neptune. Mars is a little bit easier than Earth, as you refer to this planet on gravity. Mercury, I believe, is all the way out by the sun, just got destroyed. It went into the sun.